Hello, Colts Nation. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast. As always, I am one of two dudes talking Colts, and we're joined by a dude talking Jets today. We're really excited to have Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. We are wiping clean. We're moving forward. We got to talk about Thursday. Zach, I'm gonna let you do a little bit more because you like to do the intros on
yeah,
our guests.
man.
I'm gonna let you take over.
Yeah, I guess everybody, as we're recording this podcast, I'm going to be full disclaimer. It's Monday, the day after we lost to the Tennessee Titans. I'm absolutely sick to my stomach, but I'm pumped, man, to have Ryan on this. You know, I kind of started talking to him back a couple weeks ago. He's nice enough to join the show. I love his energy. If you guys haven't checked out his stuff, pause this, go subscribe, go check him out, be a part of what he's got going on. Like we always ask, join our family, like, rate, review, share, subscribe to No Horsing Around podcast family. We just hit 600 subscribers a day. We've only been doing this for 3 months. We're just Ryan, we're just two jackasses talking about football, and we have 600 subscribers. So, we're happy to do that. We're going to ask you how you're feeling, man. You just came off of Mike White. Come on, man. Let's give it up for Mike White right now, right?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what was he, 37 of 45, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 2-point conversion? If you told me that's how that game was going to go. I had free tickets to go to that game, and I was so upset the game before where the Jets just got the snot kicked out of them by the Patriots, 54-13 or whatever the score was. I was like, I'm not going. I'm not wasting my time on this game, so I'm just going to sit home. I'm going to drink beer. I'm just going to be, that's all I'm going to do. And to watch the little, each throw. And we finally score points in the first quarter, first time this whole season. And then, the Jets have a lead. Wait a second. This is new to me. What's going on? Aside from beating the Titans earlier this year on what would have been some broken plays, this was actually how I expected our offense to look from day one. So it was a pleasant surprise from Mike White for sure.
Absolutely, man. I tell you, I was thinking Joe Flacco, right? Like we were going to get lucky and get Joe Flacco. That will not happen this Thursday, Colts fans. I can tell you that right now. Steven, where you at, man? Are you head above water right now, brother?
I am. The two saving graces, and I tell people I live in Tennessee, so that's tough enough already, right? But is that when it was Halloween, so I just took my girls out and went trick-or-treating immediately after and just did a video. Y'all saw it. They really, the No Horsing family and Colts Nation really showed out watching the video. I'm going to negate all the Titans fans that decided to tell me to tighten up. But so I kept my head above water with that. And then also the news, obviously, with them, and no one's happy about it, but the Derrick Henry injury really shifted them a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what they go forward, but I'm above water. I'm thankful that it's a short week, that the game is in 3 days, because you really do have to turn the page very quickly and move on. The players do, we will, and you just got to look forward and see what this game is going to be like on Thursday night. So I'm surviving.
Yeah, man. So I guess we'll do like we always do. We'll just dive straight in, man. Ryan, we're going to start off with you. What's your injury report looking like this week? I know it's a little bit early, but short week. Our team's already kind of come out with a little something. Was interested in how the Jets are doing health-wise.
So I think the biggest injury, aside from Zach Wilson not playing, he's out for the next 3 weeks or so. Corey Davis didn't play this past week, so I'm curious to see if the Jets wind up getting him back. Being able to get the 405 yards, most of that yardage came from Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore, Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, all around the line of scrimmage. So getting our possession receiver in Corey Davis back would be an interesting dynamic in this offense. Defensively, we're actually getting a little bit more healthy. We had Mosley back this week, and then we got Gerard Davis back, who was the first free agent that we wound up signing, linebacker from the Lions. So I think as he gets a little more comfortable, you'll start to see the Jets have more 6-man personnel in the box, because we've had basically 5th and 6th round converted safeties be playing linebacker for us the last few weeks. So us getting healthy there was big. Maybe the other big injury to us potentially, I think he came back in and played, but that was George Fant, our backup left tackle, because Mekhi Becton's out. So we were kind of down to our third left tackle in Chuma Edoga. And if Fant can play, he has played well this entire season. So I think that is really good for the Jets. Overall, as far as health goes, we are in better position than we were the last few weeks, with the exception of, Zach Wilson and Corey Davis.
Well, see, you led kind of right into my question, because I'm super curious.
Mm-hmm.
Is what are you feeling? I know he's not playing, but my mind goes to Zach Wilson and kind of how he's looked this year, and what was looked at kind of when the draft took place, and how high he shot up and how quickly, and coming from Utah, coming from a smaller school, coming to New York in that spotlight. What are your feelings on him?
I would say that there is a lot of talent there. I think the ceiling is immensely high. When I look at what Mike White did yesterday, there was nothing that I saw that felt really like wow to me. I think he executed the offense exactly how this offense is supposed to be run. It's almost like if you think of Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers, that sort of mentality. He can operate the offense. He can make all the right reads. He may not wow you with his arm. And that's why they go out and they get a Trey Lance to try and have that explosive aspect to their game. And I think that's what Zach Wilson will inevitably be. With him not having any out-of-conference games last year at BYU, I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen him sit for the first year. And the Jets never brought in a backup quarterback. We wind up trading for Flacco this past week. But I think Zach sitting on the sideline is probably not a bad thing. I would say that there's probably a little – maybe, depending on how this week goes, a little bit of locker room kind of dynamic that could be at play, because Mike White clearly played better than anything that Zach Wilson has shown. Even the win against the Titans was a lot of off-script plays, and Robert Saleh has come out and he said, the Jets and Zach just need to make the boring plays. And that's what we got out of Mike White, and that's why this offense looked so efficient, and why it looks like we have a good offensive line, and why it looks like we have weapons, because Zach's not holding on to the ball as long. Getting the ball out quick made this offense look a lot better. But I think for me, the hope with Zach Wilson is once he figures out those rookie growing pains and he can do the things that Mike White is currently doing, because remember, Mike White was drafted in 2018. He's been around the league a little bit, so he's had some time to kind of figure out the game. I think you give Zach Wilson the year. I think he'll come back and play this year, but I think long-term, his athletic ability is going to be the reason why we drafted him, and why I think the Jets could be trending upward, even though, he's not maybe playing as well as he could be playing.
Hey, Ryan, got a question for you. Were you for the Flacco trade or against the Flacco trade? Because to me, it just seemed a little bit like, okay, we're on a team. We're clearly rebuilding, right? Like, we're trying to build this team around Zach Wilson. And if you're not going to win games anyways, I don't know if, I hate being in purgatory right in the middle where, you slide down in draft position. Nobody wants to lose, man. That's just football. Nobody wants to lose. And especially when you're solid coming in, you want this culture of, we're going to try to win every game, right? Like, that's just a bad way. That's a bad vibe in the locker room to go out there and just tank. But that being said, as the fan in you, how did you feel about Flacco coming in? Like, were you thinking, did we really need him, or do you like the idea of having Flacco?
So I don't mind the idea of Flacco. So the Jets and Flacco have a history. Obviously, he was with us last year, but the RGM, Joe Douglas, was the one that scouted him when he was in Baltimore, and he kind of championed him. So there's a long-standing relationship between Joe Douglas and Joe Flacco. I'm not as banged up about bringing in a veteran quarterback. I would have liked to have seen them bring in someone like a Brian Hoyer earlier in the offseason, and apparently the Jets had talks with him. They wound up lowballing him, and he wound up going back to New England, and you're seeing kind of how that coaching aspect from Hoyer is affecting Mac Jones, and Mac Jones seems to be ahead of the curve in his development there. With the Jets, I think the veteran leadership was supposed to come from Greg Knapp, and Greg Knapp unfortunately passed away due to a bicycle accident in the late summer there. So the Jets don't have that aspect, and they've had Mike LaFleur, who's a first-time offensive coordinator, kind of coming in, trying to show everyone the ropes. So I think there was definitely a learning curve there. Trading for Joe Flacco, the Jets gave up a 2022 conditional 6th-round pick based on playing time. It could be a 5th-round pick. I don't expect that to be the case because of how Mike White performed. But I do like the veteran presence on the sideline. And as far as the draft pick goes, the Eagles wound up signing him for 3 years or 1 year, $3.5 million. The Jets inherit a contract of about 1 year, like $500,600,000 or so because of the way the bonuses worked out. So if you think of it this way, the Jets got the player that they would have used as their backup quarterback anyway for $3 million less. So how are they going to spend that money? Are they going to spend the $3 million, or would they have been better off with the 6th-round pick who has a 4% chance of being a starter? The Jets still have 9 draft picks, so draft pick wise, I'm not beat up about it. It just feels like there was maybe a lack of foresight with not having a backup quarterback earlier in the year.
Okay, so let's kind of shift here because I'm interested in let's go to the players who are going to be on the field on Thursday. So looking through, and when you were mentioning some of the players, and I may have missed, CJ Mosley is one that sticks out to me. Quinnen Williams is Quinnen Williams. I mean, he's extremely talented kind of on the defensive side of the ball. Who, looking at your defense to our offense a little bit, who are some players that the Colts fans need to keep an eye on who maybe we don't know? I'm throwing out a couple of big names that I know, but who are some of the ones that are kind of under the radar that are ones that could make an impact on Thursday?
So under the radar, a player that's he hasn't shined the last 2 weeks. We just re-signed him to a big deal about 3 weeks ago, was John Franklin Myers, a defensive end for us. He was a guy we picked up off waivers a few years ago. He's been playing really well. In the secondary, that was an area that I thought the Jets would really have a lot of issues in, but it turns out it's one of the strengths of our team. And Bryce Hall, a 5th-round pick from 2 years ago, is playing lights out. Ja'Marr Chase had 3 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown yesterday, and Bryce Hall has really locked down a lot of the receivers that he's wound up going up against. Now, the way the Jets sort of play their defense, Hall tends to stay on the right side of the defense, so if you're moving people over to the left, you'll wind up with Brandon Echols, who's also, a young player. He's a rookie this year. And then we have Michael Carter II. So we have Michael Carter 1, which is the running back for us. Michael Carter 2 is our slot cornerback. He's been playing lights out. Our cornerbacks are sneaky good. I will say that. I would say if there's an area to exploit on our defense, it would be if you attack our safeties. So maybe some tight end play or things up the seam would probably be how you want to attack the Jets defense.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like that their coaching staff. Do you feel good about Saleh in there? Do you feel like they got the right guy? Because I feel like although they've won a couple games this year, they've got a pretty good one there. I mean, he's a pretty good motivator. And sometimes when coordinators come over, they're great coordinators, but they're just terrible head coaches. I don't know if I get that vibe from him. I think he's actually going to pan out to be a pretty good head coach, a pretty good leader of men. And I feel like he holds people accountable, without calling them out in front of everybody else. He holds all of his players accountable. Who's been your best player on defense so far this year? Just your all-out best player.
So overall, with Robert Saleh, I do think we got the right guy. He wasn't someone I was really looking at when I was looking at okay, we got to get the quarterback. So I want an offensive-minded head coach because I don't want this guy to be pulled away for a head coaching candidacy, just a year or two into his development. So I wanted Brian Daboll. That was kind of the guy I wanted. When I heard the rumors of Robert Saleh and I started doing my research into him, I was like, okay, this guy's a fantastic motivator, which I'll be honest, after watching the Patriot game, I was really concerned about. I was like, oh, maybe this guy is not what I thought he was going to be. So now, seeing him this week, watching him kind of get fired up, jumping up and down on the sideline, getting the players excited, I think we do have the right guy. He's very calm and composed. He'll show emotion, which I think is what players want to see, but he's not the Rex Ryan type that would sort of put a target on your back. He doesn't fluff you up. He'll prop you up where he says okay, look, I want our guys to be able to be in a position where they can make money. He wants them to get their next contract, and players want to kind of play for that. Defensively, where this has really helped us out with Saleh, has been our front four. We switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense, and now you have Quinnen Williams and Sheldon Rankins coming up the middle with Foley Fatukasi. Those guys are kind of rotating at the defensive tackle position. And then on the defensive end side, we lost Vinny Curry for the year. Carl Lawson winds up getting hurt in training camp. So we were kind of left high and dry there. John Franklin Myers has been a very nice surprise. Like I said, we got him off waivers a few years ago. And then Bryce Huff, who was an undrafted free agent just 2 years ago, has really been nice to see. I think this defense overall does play a lot better getting CJ Mosley back. Last week, we didn't have him. Last year, he opted out due to COVID. So even, we got him 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago. We had a fantastic game against Buffalo week 1. He winds up getting hurt, doesn't play the rest of the season, opts out all of last year. So we're basically 2 years removed from CJ Mosley being a dominant player. And a lot of people, including myself, were thinking, okay, maybe we got to move on from him. But you could tell the leadership when he's on the field. It's impressive. The Jets are just in the right position. They're making the right calls. From a best player on the defense perspective, I think I'm going to go with Bryce Hall. I think he's been our best player, 5th-round guy out of Virginia. He has been really impressive. He stayed healthy. The injury, I think, was his not coming out of college. So really happy with where we are at in terms of our secondary progression, when I thought that was really going to be a weakness this year.
Yeah, I mean, and to kind of piggyback with what Zach was saying too, Saleh seems like a very solid fit. He seems, I like the, I go back to the offseason. I'm all about like cliches. I love the all gas, no break thing that he did. And he does seem, and you do also see, you hear the players talk about, players do want to play for him, which I think will come in handy, obviously, as we get to the offseason for you guys. Kind of flipping over to the offensive side of the ball for you guys. Obviously, we're very familiar with Corey Davis. That's one. And then as a fan, Jamison Crowder is one that we all know who that is too. On that side of the ball, as I was looking over kind of the stats and the players, I'm interested in the running back position as I'm looking, because I'm used to you guys having that running back, that guy who can kind of carry the ball. And I didn't see it per se, but I may not be looking close enough. So I'm curious what your feelings are.
So running back wise, the Shanahan LaFleur system, they definitely rely on running back by committee, and they like their fast running backs. Last year, we saw a lot of Frank Gore with Adam Gase. In years past, it's been Chris Ivory, it's been LaDainian Tomlinson, it's been Thomas Jones, kind of coming up through the ranks there. But Michael Carter and Ty Johnson are a very good 1-2 punch. They're both really good receivers out of the backfield. Michael Carter, one of the most electric running backs coming out of college this past year, and he wound up falling to the Jets in the 4th round. That's an area that I think you guys will have to try and defend well. And it's not so much up the middle. These are guys that can catch out of the backfield, guys that are going to be on wheel routes, guys that are going to be taking advantage of screen passes. So if you guys don't bite on that and you force Mike White to kind of go deeper with the ball, then I think you guys are going to have a really good chance of beating us. Michael Carter, you could tell the talent is there. His feet, his balance, everything is just really nice. He had one play where his knee didn't touch the ground, and he just kept driving his legs, and he wound up getting an extra 7-8 yards on the play. So the Jets are definitely a running back by committee, and we may have like 20 rushes the entire game, but you'll see a lot of touches overall from our running backs in the pass game as well.
Man, I tell you what, you got to be feeling good about that Adam Gase experiment being over with. Right? Like, I mean, come on. Is that the worst head coach in NFL history? I mean, let's hear it from
my God. You want to hear it? So the minute I heard that signing happened, I just put my hands up and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This guy was just fired by the Dolphins. We get a call in the middle of the night from Peyton Manning, of all people, to say, oh, you got to hire this guy. He's just this great offensive mind. He's coaching where the NFL is going. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And you knew it, like, because there was so much hope in Sam Darnold after his rookie year. And then the minute we brought in Gase, it was like, okay, like hopefully he's just talented enough to overcome what's about to happen, because you see what happened to Ryan Tannehill. You see Sam Darnold, at least when he has his weapons with Matt Rule in Carolina, he plays relatively well. I know they're in a little bit of a rough spot, but by and large, very, very happy not to have Adam Gase on this team. And I think the biggest factor for us is he wanted to be the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the passing game coordinator, and the quarterback's coach. He wanted to be the one to mold Sam Darnold. This year, Robert Saleh comes in. He gets a passing game coordinator in Greg Knapp. He gets his offensive coordinator in Mike LaFleur. He gets his quarterback coach. They basically surrounded Zach Wilson with a ton of nurturing support. And now with Joe Flacco coming in, he's got the veteran presence as well. So the coaching difference in personality and the way it affects the locker room has been huge. I love not having Adam Gase.
Piggyback off that question real quick, not to interrupt you, Steven, but
No, you're good.
Elijah Moore, that's a dude that I really, really loved, super, super loved in the draft. And I thought, man, you put this guy in the right system and he's 100 catches a year. That's what I felt anyways. And I mean, it's very early on. I don't feel like they've utilized him quite the right way this year, but you mentioned him earlier in the podcast. I just wanted to highlight that and just get your thoughts on him and what his future looks like as a Jet.
So it's really exciting to see where this is going to go with him, because a lot of Jet fans have been frustrated because we wanted him to get the ball more than he's seen. And the Jets have sort of been playing him on the outside. And when you're a Jet fan, you're kind of going through who our draft picks were the last few years. You want, ideally, Corey Davis to be your 1. You want Denzel Mims, our second-round pick from last year, to be our 2 on the outside. And then you would like Elijah Moore to be in the slot and just kind of work that shiftiness. And then maybe Crowder is on the other side if they run some 4 wide receiver sets. And that just hasn't been the case. So it's been a little frustrating to watch. I feel like yesterday's game was the first time that you got to see Elijah Moore be utilized correctly, get him in space. And you look at the top 4 receivers for the Jets this past week, and most of the passes were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. And it was Michael Carter and Ty Johnson at the running back position, and it was Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore at the wide receiver position. So we didn't really push the ball deep downfield. They trusted their guys to make some plays. And there was some plays where Elijah Moore was just running wild, running free, and Mike White just couldn't get him the ball. So I think there's some really cool opportunities for where Moore is going to be. I think he's the most talented of our wide receivers. It's just a matter of him kind of figuring out the NFL and the Jets figuring out how they're going to utilize him the right way.
See, I'm so glad that you talked about Elijah Moore, but what you said just right there, because I wanted to ask, as a Colts podcast, it's a rule of thumb that we just don't like the Titans. Yeah, we got to poke every once in a while, right? But my question is, how have you felt? Do you feel like, because you guys paid big money to Corey Davis to get him, you paid number 1 money. Has he lived up to it? Like he's looked good. But I'm curious, has he lived up to that in your guys' opinion?
So I think the contract he signed was 3 years, $45 million. I want to say it was $15 million a year. Maybe it was a little less, shade under that. So for the money, I'm definitely fine with it. The Jets are going into this offseason with 9 draft picks and $54 million in cap space before cuts. So the Jets have plenty of assets to continue to build anyway. But the Jets clearly felt this past offseason that they didn't have a number 1 wide receiver, and they didn't feel like they had the depth in the rooms. They went out, they drafted Elijah Moore higher than they drafted Denzel Mims. They signed Corey Davis, and they signed Keelan Cole. So they wind up bringing in a bunch of weapons there. And Corey Davis, when Zach Wilson is on the field, force feeds him the ball. You can tell there's a very strong comfort there. I almost think of him like an Eric Decker, like big body kind of possession receiver, that someone that the Jets were able to watch, in the mid to early 2010s, 2015 or so. So I like the big body possession. He's had a few issues with drops. He's had a few drops there, but I think by and large, he is where I've wanted him to be. I don't know if you'd say, I would think he's a number 1 receiver. Like I think he's a top 32 receiver in this league, or you say he's a really high end number 2. And I'm fine with the Jets having a bunch of high end number 2s. I don't necessarily need that number 1 stud wide receiver if I have a bunch of guys that can kind of work the entire offense and we can spread this ball around. So I like Corey Davis. I think the upside is there. I think if we can get what they got out of him in Tennessee last year, then it's all gravy. And I think the Jets are at least headed in the right direction compared to how we've sort of performed with wide receivers the last few years.
Yeah, man, some really good points there. Davis is a big body receiver. I've always liked him. I always felt a little more like a number 2 to me, not really a true number 1, but he's a solid number 2. I mean, for sure. I mean, health has really been his biggest, issue in his career anyways. And we'll see how that goes. Offensively for us, it really starts and stops with one wide receiver and one running back. So Jonathan Taylor for us, I mean, he's our best player on offense, and for some reason Frank Reich doesn't want to use him all the time, which is, good for whoever's going against him. But I mean, he really is a true talent. He's one of the rare running backs that when he gets the football, he not only gets, that 10 or 12 yard game, he can go 80 yards, man. I mean, the guy's got real speed. I mean, 4.4 speed for a running back. He's a good running back. He's good at receiving the ball out of the backfield. Michael Pittman Jr. starting to kind of come into his own. You talk about guys wanting to be a wide receiver one in this league. In his second year, he certainly has done that. 10 catches against the Titans, 2 touchdowns. So that'll be some people that if I was a Jets fan, I'd be kind of circling on my map. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, Stephen can give his thoughts on it as well. He already has on our last podcast. He was off against Tennessee. He just wasn't everything. I was there. I'm a season ticket holder. Everything was high. Everything, he was selling everything. The Tennessee did a good job getting pressure on him in the second half, and then he just threw a really bad pick, in overtime to end that game. But our line seems to be coming together. We seem to be gelling. We seem to have 5 guys that we want to start, 5 real starters on the offense. I don't know if you've watched the Colts a whole lot this year, but just wanted to get your thoughts, your ideas, just generally as a Jets fan. What do you think about our offense, if anything, if you know anything about any of our star players, and what are you looking for the Jets to stop in this game, this Thursday night football game?
So the 2 players I'm really looking at, you said Pittman. That was one guy that I looked at very closely because I thought I would have an opportunity to draft that guy, being a Jet fan, and Sam Darnold, the USC connection. I thought they were going to go that route. They wound up not making that kind of play for him. So I do like him. I like the style he plays with. I think he will be an interesting player to watch, but I do think Jonathan Taylor, like you mentioned, is going to give the Jets a hard time. By and large, the Jets are pretty good against the run, but receiving backs like a McCaffrey, like a McNichols, those were the backs that really gave the Jets trouble. Cordero Patterson with the Falcons as well, same kind of idea. I think if you utilize your running backs more against us and you try to get CJ Mosley or Jared Davis out in coverage with them, I think you have a really good shot. Now, Jared Davis just came back last game, so we don't really know how he's going to perform against running backs overall. But CJ Mosley has been pretty dominant in the middle of the field. So I think, I don't know. I guess Jonathan Taylor is probably the biggest X factor for me because of his play style and just his home run ability.
Yeah. So I would agree. I agree with everyone that Zach listed. He is, we talked beforehand. We talked on it with Carson. So I probably have developed the reputation as kind of a Carson apologist a little bit. Mm-hmm. But until this game, my opinion had been that he was not the problem behind some of the losses. He's played well. I had a conversation with some Titans fans today and said, the best way they put it was, this is who he is. Like, you kind of got to roll with it. You take the good with the bad. He's going to do plays where he throws a stupid pick. But I mean, I said it in our episode for the recap, I was impressed with the mental aspect of the ability to throw that pick and then immediately come back on the field and still have kind of the cojones to make the plays he did to go down the field. I'm interested in what, as a Jets fan, do you fear's the wrong word, but do you look at him and like he's a legit, like, I'm concerned if he does decide he's going to play well, if he's having one of his games, is he an issue?
Yeah, so this is interesting for me because this was when Wentz was drafted. Joe Douglas came in shortly after to the Philadelphia Eagles as the VP of Player Personnel. So I know him pretty well, sort of by association. When Carson Wentz is on and he's on his game, he is very, very difficult to defend. I mean, you're talking MVP caliber candidate just a few years ago. And I know injuries have kind of been an issue. I think when Nick Foles wound up winning that Super Bowl. I think there was sort of I don't know what the right term would be, but it's like I felt like he kind of got the rug pulled out from under him a little bit, almost like how I almost felt on a very minuscule scale. It's not Super Bowl caliber, but the way Zach Wilson gets knocked out, hasn't played well, and Mike White, back quarterback who no one has heard of, winds up playing phenomenally well. I think there's maybe some hurt feelings. I think if Wentz is healthy, and I think he can take advantage of the playmakers you guys have, and his mobility, his ability to escape is just awesome. So as long as he's healthy and he's playing at 100%, I would say the Jets are or should be afraid of him. I kind of put him, when I'm looking at quarterbacks, somewhere in the, I think at his best is just inside the top 10. I would say right now I would just kind of rank him right around 15. I think he's a top half of the league quarterback. And as the season kind of goes on, I'll probably adjust that. I guess my thought process is, how are you guys feeling? Do you think you'll wind up giving up that first round pick? Because I know it's tied to his playing time. I think it was 75% of the snaps was the trade.
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky. So it's 70% in the playoffs or 75% not making the playoffs. So let's just say 70%. I went on record saying this, and I believe it 100%. If they are out of the race, they're going to sit on those last 3 or 4 games, and they're going to keep – I mean, there's no way – I don't know how you can lose the first-round pick and then continue to put him out there and still not have a chance to make the playoffs. If that's tanking and that makes fans mad, maybe that's the way it works out, and that's football. But for me, I don't want to have him trotting out there if we're absolutely knocked out of this thing. And I was telling Steven before this podcast, this is actually a scary game for me, to be honest. You got a team in the Jets who just got a little bit of confidence. They haven't had a full week off. They're just riding that high coming in this Thursday. And we've had 2 really demoralizing mental losses now, to Baltimore and then to the Titans. I don't know how we respond to that. I would like to think that we beat the Jets, and on paper, you would think we would. That being said, it's a nerve-wracking game for me. Like as a Colts fan, 3 weeks ago, I was like, okay, good. We get the Jets, it's going to be cool. Everything's going to be relaxed. I don't know if I feel that way anymore, just because this team is so volatile. We could come out and just go crazy and play great, or we could come out and really, really, hinder ourselves. How do you feel, Steve?
So it's funny with the pick portion with the Carson in the first round. The tough thing I have is that I think worst case we play just good enough to be right there kind of the entire season. And they're not going to sit him if they're still kind of right there. Yeah. And I think that's the, like, I'm constantly after every game, I'm looking at the schedule going, okay, like we had a video earlier the year. It was like pathway to 10 wins. So I'm still looking at that and I'm like, man, like I'm coming up like 9-8, which still sounds so stinking weird, but I'm coming up like 9-8 or, 8-9. And it's like, if it's right there, and on top of it too, the Colts are known to good or bad. And especially Reich, he's known to kind of stick to his guns for better or worse. Vinatieri a few years ago, Brissett a few years ago. I mean, we're not known to admit when we're wrong too much. So, I mean, I don't know. I think we're going to be right there. I don't know if it's going to take off or not. And then to kind of piggyback what you said, Zach, too, when we're looking at this game, I don't know, man. I mean, like you said, coming in, you guys, massive win. I mean, and not like close, like a really well played game. And we're coming off of a demoralizing loss. Now, granted, we do tend to bounce back. It's going to be interesting to see how the short week works for you guys, and how does it work for the Colts to kind of try to wipe the slate clean. So, I mean, I'm always nervous because the Colts don't tend to blow anybody out. I think my joke was, unless it's the Houston Texans.
I was just the game's back, a pathway to get to 10 wins. It's going to be really hard. And then lo and behold, I thought about the Patriots game, and I thought, oh my God, that's a playoff team this year, I guess, huh? Like this guy does. I mean, what are you gonna do, Ryan? You know what I mean? Like this guy, he finds a way every single time. Just when kind of crazy. People counted them out a little bit last year. It was a total rebuild, really, for the Patriots. Just How do you feel as a Jets fan, Patriots? I mean, gosh, you got to just hate it, man.
Oh, it drives me bananas, right? So I'll be 32 on Thursday, actually, during our game.
Happy birthday,
thank you. So I've basically watched Belichick through the Parcells years as a Jet fan, and then he winds up, being our coach for like 4 hours or whatever it was, and then goes to New England, and then has all the success up there. So there's a very bittersweet, I shouldn't say bittersweet, it's a very bitter relationship with Jet fans and Patriot fans and the whole cheating scandals and everything that's gone on. So watching how he's been able to perform with Mac Jones, you got to think last year, I thought they looked like a very different team last year. They had something like 9 or 10 guys opt out to COVID. So now you go into this year, you get all those guys back for the most part. You get Mac Jones, who I think is a much better quarterback than Cam Newton at this stage of their careers. And you watch how they're performing. And then you got to worry about friggin' Josh Allen, who I think is arguably the best quarterback in the league right now. He's phenomenal. And now I'm a little concerned about what might happen with your Texans trading Deshaun Watson into the AFC East potentially. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow with the Miami Dolphins. Now I don't know if I necessarily see it happening until his legal issues are all played out. But man, this AFC East is going to be loaded with quarterbacks if those things kind of come to fruition.
Yeah. I feel free. We hate the Patriots here too, so it's okay. You're welcome here anytime to talk about how the Patriot hate.
Like, look, not to rant too much. He fell into their lap, right? Like there were 5 quarterbacks, and of the 5 quarterbacks, like the one that they actually wanted was literally right there at 15. Like that. Come on.
I believe your response at the time, Zach, was when we talked about Mac Jones, because there was a lot of mocking him. Until the Colts traded for Carson, there was a lot of talk of Mac Jones to the Colts. And neither one of us liked that. But, I mean, he seems to be he's like Bill Belichick Jr. I don't get it. I mean, come on. I'm rooting for you guys.
Dude, one of those things. So the Jets wind up trading up from, I believe it was pick 20. They give up 2 third-round picks to get up to pick 14 just in front of the Patriots to take Elijah Vera Tucker, the left tackle from USC. He's now playing left guard for us. He's phenomenal. He has been the second best offensive lineman of the rookie class, and he's just playing lights out across the board. I'm hoping he can be our Quentin Nelson, because I was a big Quentin Nelson fan when he was coming out. And hindsight being, let me put my tinfoil hat on for a second and just show you where I'm frustrated as a Jet fan. The Jets wind up drafting Jamal Adams, passing on Mahomes and Watson. They wind up with the 6th overall pick. We have our trade. And now, if the Jets didn't have to trade up for Sam Darnold, they could have had Mahomes or Watson. They could have had Quentin Nelson, because I think you guys would have wound up trading with the Buffalo Bills up to number 3, and you guys would have been just behind us. And there's like this whole thing. But I'm really happy with Elijah Vera Tucker. But the whole story here is that the Jets jumped in front of the Patriots because we heard that the Patriots really liked Vera Tucker and Joe Douglas. The Patriots had just lost Joe Thuney to the Chiefs. So the Jets wanted to jump in front, get their best offensive lineman, and because the Jets did that, Mac Jones wound up being the pick at 15 for the Patriots. So there's a little concern where the Jets wind up knocking out Drew Bledsoe, making way for Tom Brady. Now the Jets jump up to get Elijah Vera Tucker, making way for Mac Jones. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Crazy. Well, so before we're going to do predictions. Okay. I do want to say one more thing before that. We were talking earlier about Saleh and your GM and Douglas. And I do want to say, like, I am very, as opposed to years past where from afar, I've seen the Jets kind of throw money at their problems a little bit. I'm very impressed with your GM and your coach this year. I would love to see you guys, because I don't like the Giants. That's just a little dirty secret. We don't play them ever. But I mean, I'd much rather see you guys do well. And I am very impressed with the structure you guys seem to finally be having, and not kind of throwing money at the wall and see if it fixes all the problems. So predictions, man. I'm interested to see. We're going to go you. I want to hear what you think and what you – yeah. I got whatever it is.
So it's tough, right? The Jets are so Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because they could get blown out and get their shoes knocked off by the Patriots, lose 54-13, and then the next week they come back and they punch the Bengals in the mouth. The Jets had 3 turnovers in the first quarter and wound up making it like really close. Like, this game should not have been close. The Jets absolutely dominated the Bengals yesterday. So I'm curious to see how you guys respond to your tough loss, how the Jets respond to a short week on the road, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, second start for this quarterback in Mike White. How do they respond going into this game? And who has the most grit? Because I could really see it going both ways. And I don't know what the spread is offhand. I don't know if they've released that information yet, but I would say you guys would have to be the favorites. And I think if Jonathan Taylor gets going, I think you guys wind up winning like 28-24 or something like that, where the Jets are going to have to score a touchdown late to overcome it.
10.5. I just looked it up for you. That's
Jets are covering.
Jets are covering on that, boy.
I hope so.
Oh, now.
I hope so.
That's a college football spread.
Get your money on the Jets right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make a quick buck. I'm going to go 27-17, which means they wouldn't cover. They would need 11 points to cover. I think the Colts, when it's all said and done, I just think we're a better football team at this point. But I do worry. I mean, like I said earlier on the podcast, I do worry that Mike White can get a little bit of steam going. He can get some confidence. And we play a soft zone. You'll see that. We don't allow a lot of big plays. But if you throw a lot of, just 7, 8, 10, 12-yard out routes, a lot of easy completions, and what that happens to do with quarterbacks a lot of times against us, they get confident. They start, they 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes in a row they've completed. Then they start try to go over the top a little bit more on us, throwing the ball 15, 20 yards down the field. Now, I will say this. Our strength is teams that throw screens, teams that throw things behind the line of scrimmage, because we're a sideline-to-sideline team. We're not really a north-south team. We're an east-west team. But for me, I'm 27-17. And I think this week, Colts fans are just fed up with not giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter. And I think you're going to see his name a whole lot this Thursday night. I say 20-plus carries for the first time in the season. Stephen Burton, what say you?
So I think I'm going to go 20. I've been close before. I'm going to go 24-14. I think it's right there. I think it's going to be a close game. But I also, from watching over the years, obviously, with Wright, I'm going to piggyback with what you said. They're going to overcompensate, I feel. They're going to go the opposite way. Carson threw the ball 51 times this last game, and everybody's ripping it. Because why would you do that when Jonathan Taylor was just clipping off massive amount of yards? I think they're going to feed Taylor. That's why I don't think it's going to be a really hot, because I think they're going to pound it with him. And they're going to look to be more conservative, I think. They're not going to be as aggressive. I'm just banking on, hopefully, the short week and the ability to just clear it and just move forward, because they have done it. And Reich, for the most part, under him, the Colts have been able to bounce back well. I do think, though, I don't think it's an easy game. I think it could be kind of an ugly game. I wouldn't be shocked if it's closer than that, and I wouldn't be incredibly shocked if the Jets won. I do think you guys are trending in the absolute right direction. We're not going to get into it, but I'm so interested that if you guys do win this game and you have a 2-0 backup quarterback and a rookie who's not played well, what starts to happen in New York of all places? But we won't get into that. Because we may talk later.
Tune into Ryan's podcast 2 weeks down the road if that happens.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm going to have to be watching that one. But it wouldn't shock me if it's much closer. It wouldn't shock me if it's a 3-point game, because I think you guys are, like I said, trending in the right direction. But I am going to go Colts.
There you go, man. I mean, do it right, Stephen Burton. You can't come on a Colts podcast and not pick the Colts, right? Come on. Get your life,
I've never had another person on.
Get your life together, Stephen Burton. Come on, you know
we've never had a person on that didn't pick their own team. Even Jordan from the Texans, he picked the Texans.
Yeah,
that was a bad one.
Let's be honest. He straight face picked the Texans on our podcast. Like
he did, and that was the only blowout of the season so far.
That's the only blowout. Hey, so I want to wrap this up, Ryan, by just saying thank you so much, man, for hopping on the podcast. I guess we always give the guests a moment to kind of let everybody know where they're at on socials and everything, where they can find you. Hopefully, we'll tag you on Twitter. We'll get this out tomorrow sometime, and maybe we can connect with some other Jets fans as well. I'm sure there's going to be a few more rowdy Jets fans, a little bit more rowdy than you are. But that's okay, man. We invite everybody to our show. Light us up in the comments. Ryan, you have the floor, man.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to get together after the game and kind of figure out just what happened and how the Jets wound up winning this game. You guys can wind up finding me, youporn.com/Jets Talk. No, I'm kidding. YouTube.com/Jets Talk. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I do live shows after the Jets game. So if you want to see any live reactions, anything crazy winds up going on. I love talking to other teams' fans because it's a way for me to get some insight into the opposing team. And you guys are clearly knowledgeable fans. So again, thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, absolutely, man. So we'll wrap it up just like this. We're asking you once again to like, rate, review, share, subscribe. Join the No Horsing Around family, guys. We're so glad, everybody who's hopped on. We've actually got some Ravens fans, some Seahawks fans that stuck around. I don't think we have any Titans fans right now, unfortunately. I think they don't like us, but that's okay. Hopefully after this podcast, we have some Jets fans. But we always end it the same exact way. I love you. Steven loves you. And we're sure that Ryan loves you. So go Colts, and we'll talk to you soon.